Okay, so if you're a high performer, you know this feeling. You
Yeah.
set these huge goals, right? Really ambitious. And that drive, that aggression, it's actually crucial for playing at that top level.
Yeah.
But there's a catch.
There always is, isn't there?
Yeah, those super high standards, sometimes they become a trap. This pressure to just absolutely nail it perfectly every single time.
Right.
That can actually freeze you up. It leads to paralysis, not performance.
It's a really interesting bind. The thing that pushes you can also hold you back if you're not careful. And the source material we looked at from Coach Ed Padalecki really digs into this.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into his insights on navigating exactly that challenge.
And Coach Padalecki makes it clear, the research backs this up, high standards are necessary. They absolutely stretch you, focus you on excellence.
Look,
But when success means only perfection, everything has to go right. Well, that's where you get stuck in that perfectionist trap.
right, and Coach P points out that this perfect or bust thinking, that's like the breeding ground for performance anxiety. You see it all the time, don't you?
Oh, definitely. The athlete who chokes, the executive who keeps putting off that big project because, the conditions just aren't quite perfect yet.
Which they never are. Waiting for perfect is, well, often just a fancy way to procrastinate.
It really is. So that brings up the big question for anyone aiming high. How do you keep that intense drive, keep those high standards, but without cracking under the pressure of needing it all to be flawless?
And that's where this framework comes in. Coach Padalecki introduces something he adapted from Stephen Guy's called floor and ceiling goals.
Yeah, he calls it a smarter framework, a high-performance mental model. It sounds quite practical.
Okay, so break it down. Instead of just one massive target, we're talking 2 levels. How does that change things psychologically?
That's exactly it. First, you define your ceiling. This is the big one. Your aspiration. The everything clicks perfectly scenario. Think championship level result. It's that peak outcome.
Okay, the dream target. Got it.
Yeah.
And the floor. What's that?
The floor, that's your minimum viable effort. It's the absolute baseline, the non-negotiable thing you commit to doing even on your absolute worst day.
Ah, okay. So when you're tired, unmotivated, things are going wrong, you still hit the floor.
Precisely. It's the minimum action that still counts as showing up.
So having both of these
Yeah.
creates what Coach P talks about as goal bandwidth. Why is having bandwidth so important for staying psychologically flexible,
Yeah.
especially for high performers?
Well, the source material really stresses this. Rigidity kills performance. Flexibility is what sustains it.
Right.
Think about it this way. If your ceiling and your floor are the same thing, I must achieve this perfect outcome or it's a failure, you're basically walking a tightrope.
Super high pressure. One little wobble and you feel like you failed completely.
Exactly. And that narrow high pressure zone, that's where the stress, the inconsistency, and like you said earlier, the burnout really comes from. But when your ceiling is way up here and your floor is down here, but still above zero,
You've got space between them.
you've got breathing room, you're on more of a bridge, maybe with some railings, you're still aiming for the other side, the ceiling, definitely. But you have room to stumble, have an off day, hit your floor, and crucially, still be moving forward.
Okay, that gives you a kind of psychological safety net, maybe, to go for the big goal without being terrified of just missing one rigid point.
That's a great way to put it. It allows you to keep aiming high without the constant fear of failure if things aren't perfect.
Okay, I like the concept. How do we actually use this? How do you take this idea and apply it to, say, a goal you're working on right now, maybe landing a client or hitting a fitness goal?
So Coach Padalecki's approach is pretty straightforward. First step, pick one key goal. Something important you're focused on right now. Personal, professional, doesn't matter.
Okay, let's say hitting a quarterly sales number, or maybe finishing a chapter of a book I'm writing, or just being consistent with workouts.
Perfect examples. Now, for that goal, define your ceiling. What does absolutely crushing it look like? The best possible outcome for today or this week.
Okay, I can picture that ideal result.
Great. Now, the crucial part, define your floor for that same time frame. What's the absolute minimum you will commit to doing? The smallest step that still counts as progress, as showing up.
The non-negotiable minimum.
Exactly. And Coach P gives some really concrete examples in the source material.
Right, like for a sales leader doing outreach, what did he suggest there?
Ceiling might be, send 20 high-quality outreach emails today. Floor, make 3 quality touch points. Could be calls, emails, LinkedIn messages, whatever. Just 3.
That's a big difference, 20 versus 3. But 3 is definitely doable even on a crazy day.
That's the point. And for a writer,
What was that one?
ceiling, Write 2,000 words. Floor, write 100 words.
Wow, 100 words. That feels small compared to 2,000.
It is small, but it's not zero. It keeps the engine running. It maintains momentum. It proves you showed up.
And for fitness, that's one that slips easily for busy people, athletes or executives.
Common one. Ceiling. A full 60-minute planned workout. Floor. A 10-minute walk plus maybe 5 minutes of mobility work.
Okay, that one really hits home because it just kills the excuse of, oh, I don't have a full hour, so I guess I'll do nothing.
Exactly. You commit to that 10-minute floor no matter what.
Setting these, it feels like more than just goal setting. It feels like actively building mental toughness.
It absolutely is. Coach Padalecki actually frames it precisely like that. Setting floor and ceiling goals is mental toughness in action. You're literally training your brain.
How so?
You're taking away that heavy emotional weight of needing perfection. You replace it with a clear, doable range of outcomes, and you teach yourself that hitting the floor, that's always a win.
Because you kept the commitment. You maintain momentum.
You got it. That's the psychological win right there.
So the real leverage here isn't just in setting the goals themselves, but in that underlying commitment to the process.
Yes. That's the core message that comes through from Coach P. The real victory is found in your commitment to process over perfection. Look, elite performers, they aren't perfect every single day. Nobody is. What sets them apart is how they're trained, and not just physically or technically. They train their minds.
To bend, not break.
They focus on building streaks of showing up, not finding excuses.
They show up even if it's just to hit that minimum floor.
And that consistency, day after day, even just hitting the floor repeatedly, that's what compounds. That's what builds resilience. That's what ultimately leads to those high-level results over time. It's the fundamental habit.
Okay, so to bring it home for everyone listening, the power in setting both a floor and a ceiling goal really comes down to creating flexibility, that much-needed psychological wiggle room.
Right. It ensures you keep making progress, keep building momentum, even when things aren't ideal or your energy is low or you're just having an off day.
So Coach Ed Padalecki leaves us with a pretty direct challenge, doesn't he?
He does, he says. Pick one important goal you're working on today. Define your ceiling for today. Sure, aim high. But more importantly, define your floor for today.
And make hitting that floor the absolute non-negotiable.
Yes. And this is key. Celebrate hitting the floor. Acknowledge it as a win. You showed up, you kept the promise to yourself, you built momentum, and you use that win, that feeling of accomplishment, however small, to help propel you toward the ceiling when you have the capacity.
Because building that real mental resilience, achieving that consistent high performance, it's not about hitting home runs every single day. It's a process. You build it deliberately, one floor at a time.
Well said.
So here's something to think about. What simple, achievable floor can you commit to today for one of your key goals? What minimum action will guarantee that no matter what else happens, you still make progress? Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We hope this gives you some food for thought as you continue on your journey.